Hello everybody and welcome to another Reddit video. My name is Dylan, and to those who have realised that I'm not in fact Jake, I tip my fedora to you and hope we can get along just fine. Today we're going to be looking at some stories from the subreddit Tales from the Front Desk. I hope you guys do enjoy. The time I got accused of elder abuse. 4:15 AM. A gentleman walks up to the locked front doors. Assuming that he is a guest, I direct him to scan his room key to gain entry. He tells me through the doors that he has a reservation. I ask him through the speaker for his name. He gives me the name Mr. High and Mighty, and I verify that he does indeed have a valid reservation. I buzz him through the door and he walks up to the front desk and asks me, "Why are you so rude?" I respond back with, "What do you mean, sir?" He says again that I'm being rude by asking, "Why are you so rude?" I do not know how to respond to his question, so I ask him for his ID and credit card so that I can check him into his reservation. He tosses his ID off the desk and it slides down onto the lower desk. He then reaches for his credit card whilst demanding to speak with the manager. I let him know that there's no manager at 4 AM and that they will be in later in the day if he wanted to speak with them. He demands to speak to the manager again. I then call my FOM to let him know the situation. After talking with FOM, I decide at that time that I would make another attempt to check the gentleman into his room. He ignores that and proceeds to demand to speak with the manager now. I advise him that the manager will be in after 2 PM and that he can speak to him at that time since his reservation was for 2 days. I hang up with FOM and the guy pulls out his phone and calls 991. Seeing this, I call FOM back and advise him that the guy has just called 911 on me. As I am speaking to the FOM, the dispatcher calls the gentleman back. I am unable to hear what he said as I was still talking to FOM, but FOM asks me when the reservation was made. I let him know that it was booked the same day around 1 PM at the government rate. FOM asks what branch of government this guy is from. When I ask him, he refuses to answer my question and says that he will only tell the manager personally. After asking him again what branch of the government he is with, and him again refusing to let me know, I hang up with FOM. The guy tries recording me with his phone. I asked him to stop recording me, but he refuses, still demanding to speak with the manager. At this point, I call FOM back and let them know that he's recording me. The decision is made to refuse service. I hand Mr. High and Mighty back his ID/credit card and ask him to leave the hotel. He refuses. At this point, with FOM still on the phone, the decision is made to call local PD. I hang up with FOM and start to dial 311. As I am explaining the situation to the dispatcher, she says that we have another call at the same time regards to the same incident. It turns out Mr. High and Mighty is calling 911 onto me again. 4:39 AM. Local PD arrives on site. The officer speaks with Mr. High and Mighty, who tells the officer that I have committed elder abuse towards his mother for not giving them the room keys. The officer explains to him that elder abuse is when someone in a place of power doesn't feed or withholds medication from an elderly individual and not for refusing service. Note, at this point I didn't say a single word to his mother. The officer also lets him know that using the 911 system for this type of call is an abuse of the 911 system. The officer then lets him know that to the officer this is a civil matter and not a valid crime. Mr. High and Mighty keeps saying that refusing to allow his mother to lay down was in some way elder abuse, and when the officer tells him it was not elder abuse, he asked the officer to speak to his boss. Yes, he literally pulled a Karen move and asked for the officer's boss. The officer keeps his cool and advises that he will not be calling his boss and that he will speak to me, but since it's private property, there was no way the officer could force the hotel to check him in. The officer comes into the back office and I explain to him what had happened. The officer went back to Mr. High and Mighty and asked him why he left out the part about recording me or other things that he changed in his story. After a few minutes, the officer advised him that he had to leave the hotel property. Mr. High and Mighty refused. The officer asked him a second time to leave the property and Mr. High and Mighty refused again. The officer then advised a third time that if he didn't leave, the hotel could trespass him. He refused again, and at that time, the officer asked if I wanted to have him trespassed. I said that I would trespass him at that time. When he realised he couldn't talk his way out of things, he tried apologising for everything and begged for there to be no record of the incident. The officer let him know that it was too late for that and asked him for his ID whilst trespassing him from the property. Note: after he was escorted off property, I did a little googling about him. Turns out the guy was a psychiatry doctor in a neighbouring state who worked 1 day a week for the state prison. The rest of the time he was a lowly rated 2 out of 5 stars on Yelp neuro and psychiatry sleep doctor whose clinic went bankrupt. Well guys, I guess that was just one bad doctor. I've locked myself out of the room. If you work long enough in a hotel, there's a certain specific type of guest that you will get, guaranteed. No, not a dead guest. Granted, that's also guaranteed, but I've already done a tale on that. Tonight, gentle readers, we shall speak of a more light-heartedly memorable sort of guest. This was a while back during my first few months working as a night auditor, before I'd really got my sleeping schedule sorted. Biphasic sleep, bit of a pain but great if you can pull it off. I'm tidying up the paperwork prior to my nightly rollover when the elevator opens. Out steps a middle-aged gentleman who nonchalantly to the desk with a smile. I've locked myself out of the room. Lovely New Zealand accent by the way, it was like listening to Sir David Attenborough's Kiwi cousin. Ah, so you have. Which room was it? 210, last name Adam. Right, beep beep beep, here's your key. Ah, cheers. Normal so far, right? Nothing weird. I'll give you a hint. It is generally a good idea to see someone's ID when making them a new room key. However, I did not ask him for any identification because I knew for a fact that he didn't have it on his person. He didn't have anything else on his person either. Hey up, naked as the day he came into the world. Extremely casual about the whole thing too. Still quite grateful for the high countertops at the front desk. I did have the presence of mind to offer him a towel, but he declined. After all, if he got back fast enough, no one would see him. To my dying day, I will wonder how he came to be outside his room without a stitch on. Probably for the best I didn't ask, as the answer would either be something disappointingly mundane or horrifyingly weird. This way I get to speculate. That time I called his Grandaddy on him. Backstory time. We had a Snowflake Elite member make a reservation with his points for his grandson. Let's call the member Thomas and his grandson Jeff. So Thomas makes a reservation and puts his card on file and gives us the authorization to check his grandson into the room because he has to work in the area. Jeffrey proceeds to get messed up. Like high as a kite, drunk as a skunk, additional animal comparisons, you know the drill. It's an hour past checkout and Jeffrey is having trouble waking up. He talks about getting another night, but we're sold out and plus, not your card my friend, call grandpa first. Eventually we convinced Jeff to stop going back to sleep and vacate. This involved long periods of knocking on his door and calling until Jeffrey decided to unplug the phone. Lo and behold, when we enter the room to check it, a wall of gross weed smell hits us. On a sold out night when we needed the room and it's already 2 PM. So, we call the number on file and oops, no one took Jeff's phone number down as it's his grandpa on the phone. Grandpa Tommy is very upset to learn that his grandson smoked in the room. Oh, are you sure it's that? You are? You must be very personally aware of what that smells like. Yeah dude, I see what you're implying, but I've been in public high school and I work at a hotel. How many weed rooms have I had to go in, do you think? And Grandpa Tommy was also surprised because young Jeffrey said he left the hotel early in the morning for work. I asked if he could possibly assist me in getting in touch with Jeff because per the signed reg card and the paperwork Thomas signed, $250 smoking fee would have to be posted to Thomas's card if Jeff did not agree to pay. When we tried to call Jeff and got no answer over 3 hours, we went ahead and charged Thomas as per the conversation. Now I'm off shift and awaiting the news of how he took it tomorrow. Pretty sure he's going to try and get out of the charge, and since he's a super snowflake tier member, corporate might give in. My manager on the other hand couldn't stop laughing when I told her I got this Grandaddy on him. I don't really see an option for corporate to back down on this one despite Snowflake Elite status. He's just kind of in an awkward situation here. I specifically booked a late check-in. Rude, angry, regular guest, been like 10 times in 8 years, strolls up to front entrance. Kind of one of those posh snobs that looks down on you type of person. Like there's a princess and all staff are their slaves. After finishing all standard check-in procedures, I hand over the key. Me: and here is your room key and a nice deluxe room on the 2nd floor. Guest: what do you mean 2nd floor? Me: yes, it's a nice deluxe room on the 2nd floor with a great view. Guest: no, I booked a room on the 5th floor. We're always on the 5th floor. Me: oh yes, I do see the request for the 5th floor, but this is only a request unfortunately. We are also fully booked up in this category tonight too, and the only other option would be the 3rd floor. Guest: I specifically booked a late check-in. Me: what do you mean? Guest: I specifically booked a late check-in. Me: I have never heard of a late check-in and I don't know what that is or what it means. Guest: that we will check in later and that's not good at all, the rooms are gone. We don't want to sleep in any basement room on the 3rd floor. Me: okay, perfecto. I will change your key to the 3rd floor room since that's decided. I'm really sorry and blah blah blah, next time we'll give you the 5th floor, blah blah blah, I'll add it to your profile. Lols never works anyway. This was an angry German lady. Late check-in, haha, doesn't exist, you idiot. Remember guys, in the hospitality sector it's all about keeping the customer happy, even if that means point blank lying to their face. I own a mid-sized hotel in southern Thailand that's also home to a pretty large yoga studio. Guests aren't pushed to try yoga, but it's clear that we are focused around health and wellness. An Aussie guy sent me a message that his 25-year-old son would be joining us for 3 nights and asked if it would be a problem that he's not doing yoga. I explained our open door policy and reminded him that we do try and keep the noise levels down after 10 PM, as most of our guests practice in the morning. Fast forward to a night 2 of the stay. I get a call from the father, who is staying in a neighbouring hotel, that everything has been stolen out of one of the dude's room in the middle of the night. I mean everything. Passport, money, clothes, bags, etc. After calmly listening to this guy berate me for a few minutes, I get off the phone to figure it out. I of course get my manager involved right away and they rush over to his room, only to find it locked and completely as the dude left it. My manager found him passed out in a room next door with the door busted in, but naked on the bed. Apparently this kid got drunk and broke into the room next door, and when he couldn't find his things, called his dad and told him everything had been stolen. They checked out the next day and were billed for the door. We never heard any apology for them accusing our staff of theft. The owner should have said, "All our stuff was stolen in your room? Why, that's awful. This very same night some drunken asshole broke off one of my doors." Well, there we go, yoga cropping up in yet another Reddit story. If you guys did enjoy the video, leave a like down below and leave a comment with the weirdest experience you've ever had at a hotel. Give me some funny stories guys, and I'll see you in the next video.